everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Daily December 2019, day 6. I'm almost kind of caught up now. Um, it's just after midnight. Um, on the 7th, so technically I haven't gone to bed yet, so this still counts as day 6. So, today, my last video was a little rant that I'm pretty sure I've done before, and we'll probably do again until bases get their day in the sun. But I wanted to kind of stick to the music theme and talk about something different I've been trying on Twitch Sings and kind of the inspiration behind it. Twitch Sings, if you don't know, is a free karaoke game. You download it. They've got over 3,000 songs on there now. And basically what you do is you pick a song and then you sing it with a mic and sometimes a camera where you don't need it. And it will track your pitch and see how closely you're following what it says is the right pitches, and the words will show up on screen. And you can actually sing with other people. They record half the song and then you sing the other half. And it's a lot of fun. Those of us, I got into it at the very tail end of the beta. I tried to get in earlier, but it was unsuccessful. But I was in at the tail end of the beta and been playing since then. And those of us that have been there for a while and been singing for a little while now start to get creative. We don't just sing half the song and to do it. Some people will do mashups where they sing the different songs with similar chord progressions in there. A lot of people will harmonize and create their own harmonies. One of the things I do is if there's a long break in a song, I will do scat singing. Which, if you're unfamiliar, scat singing is improvised vocal jazz. If you've ever heard Ella Fitzgerald, she was famous for being able to just do amazing things with improvisation. And my background in jazz is I was an instrumentalist for years. Before I started singing jazz, and I learned to improvise on a saxophone, and so I took, and I became basically, I don't want to say a featured soloist in high school, but I was one of, I think, 3 or 4 people that we always soloed in a concert. Generally, we would get 2 or 3 solos a concert because we were really good at it and we worked really hard. I think my junior year, I had an entire semester where 8th period I went to the band room and did nothing but played jazz with 3 other guys for an hour, 5 days a week for a semester. And we learned how to improvise then, and we got really good at it. And that's what and that was one of the places I learned. I had great teachers in that. So going to vocal improv, it took me a little while to kind of transfer the skills, but now I'm a very competent and talented vocal improviser, which is not as hard as a lot of people think. It just takes practice, little bit of music theory, though it's not actually necessary to fully understand the theory behind it. Like, you don't have to know what the chord progressions are, or the difference between a 7 chord and just a regular major, or the 2-5-1 progression that is just everywhere in jazz. You don't actually have to know any of that stuff, but you do need to be able to feel it. Like, you may not realize that it's a 2-5-1 progression, but you'll know the progression. You'll know how to feel it, so you know what notes to put in. And you may not know how to, use pentatonics to create a solo or anything like that. But you should be able to feel that, okay, these are kind of the 5 notes that this progression will feed off of. Stuff like that. But once you get that real basic knowledge, a lot of it is just practice and repetition. That's how I got as good as I did, as I am, is I did it a lot. And I constantly forced myself to try new things and push myself, use different parts of my voice and different syllables and consonants and things like that. Do fast stuff, do slow stuff, do stuff where I'm just constantly singing, do stuff where I'm doing a lot of pauses and breaks to kind of just fit in and color the music, then lead it. Just constantly trying new things. And it turned out I'm pretty good at this stuff. So going back to Twitch Sings, they have an arrangement of "It Came Upon a Midnight Clear." Very traditional Christmas song, It came upon a midnight clear. Real simple. This one, though, has a bit of like a jazzy blues beat to it. So instead of, bum ba bum ba da bum 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 bum, it had this boom 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 doom boom dlang boom bum ba da ba da boom da doom. Had this real nice laid back jazzy feel to it. So I recorded, we just call it recording a seed, which is half the duet. And I recorded a seed that I start off by saying, hey, no lyrics, just improv. Like this. And then I just start improvising. And I do the whole song like that. And I've had a couple people that have jumped into their streams, and I've said, hey, I did this thing. You should really try it. One of them was adamant that she could not improvise and would not do it. And I said, no, you can. And if you want to, this is a good way to learn, just by doing it. The other one, she was just good. And we got to talking tonight, and they both did phenomenal, by the way. We got to talking tonight just about jazz in general. And jazz to me is very special. I grew up listening to jazz. I grew up playing jazz. I started playing jazz in the 6th grade. I auditioned and I got into the middle school jazz band at my middle school as a 6th grader, which was not unheard of, but it was rare. I think there was only 2 or 3 of us that made it in his 6th grade. And I played for 3 years there. And that jazz band was one of the best middle school jazz bands in the state, to the point where we would go to jazz competitions every so often, and we would go up against high school and not too many colleges, high schools, and we would put them to shame. Like we had a brilliant director. Hey, Mr. A, if you're still out there. Um, and it was great. And so I started playing. Then I got to high school, got into jazz band again. In addition to getting into, I think the second highest band because they didn't have a position open in the highest for me. My freshman year, and then I think by junior year I was doing, in addition to jazz band, I was doing jazz combos. My senior year I was in a combo plus I I was running a Dixieland combo, and then in college for the 2 years I was in it, I was in jazz band as well. Had a blast doing it. I love jazz. So jazz has been. Oh, and then after that, I was the male vocalist for a professional jazz band. So jazz, for me at least, has been such a massive part of my life, and I personally think jazz music is unique. There's just something about jazz that will affect you the way no other music will. And I'm not saying other music isn't good or is lesser than or anything like that. I'm saying jazz is an experience, and that's always what it's been to me. On tonight, when I was in a Twitch chat with friends, and the streamer was one of my friends, we just got to talking about jazz as she was singing my improv seed, and we were just tossing around jazz names and that. And I said, if you really want an experience, just a full-on trip, look up Giant Steps by John Coltrane. Now, Giant Steps is an album, but I think it's the first track on that album is the song Giant Steps, and it's a jazz standard now. The chord changes in it are now referred to as the Coltrane changes, and they're depending on who you ask, they are kind of a milestone for jazz improv. If if you can improv over the Coltrane changes, that's an accomplishment, because the changes happen so fast and are just so interesting and intricate that even on the recording, it starts off as just this real basic ba da ba dum ba ba da ba dum ba dum ba ba dum ba ba dum ba ba dum ba ba dum ba, and then does that again, and then Coltrane just goes for it. He's just doing this crazy, and it's just amazing. And then he stops, and his keyboard player starts going, and the changes are going so fast, and are just changing so rapidly that the keyboard is just fighting to keep up, and you can hear it on the recording. He's just trying so hard to keep up with the changes, and then Coltrane comes back in and finishes up the solos. Then they end it. This song itself is not that elaborate. It has an opening that lasts, I think it's like 32 bars. Like, it's a short opening. The solo section is massive, and then it's got another like 32 bars at the end that are the same thing. Like, he only has this ba-dum ba-dum ba ba-dum 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 ba. Like, that's the only like quote unquote melody of the song, and it's repeated twice at the beginning, twice at the end, and then that's it. But listening to it, listening to just the crazy things that Coltrane does as he's working through these changes and just trying every single way he can to use literally every single note possible. He was doing what's called 12 tone, which, if you're unfamiliar with how Western music works, in an octave there are 12 notes. When you count half steps and everything like that. So 12 tone. Most music is written in a key which only uses 8 notes. And even within those 8 notes, generally it's going to be chords that are what are called triads, or just 3 notes. By just using 3 of these 8 notes and switching which ones you're using, you get chord progressions and all these things. But there's certain notes that will clash with the chord, and they'll create dissonance. And so in a more traditional Western music, you just avoid them like the plague. You don't play them at all. Jazz changes that a little bit, specifically in blues, where the third note of the key, they will use both the major and the minor version of it. So their half step difference, and a major chord sounds happy, a minor chord sounds sad. But when you play them next to each other, they just sound weird, because having 2 notes that are a half step apart creates dissonance. It creates this tension that people don't like. In jazz, they lean into that tension, and they will, the minor third is called the blue note, and they will lean into it and make you just, they make you just, you feel that kind of, and then it feels really good when they resolve it into the major. So you have this, that's how Western music is built, on dissonance and harmony. That's how it all works. 12 tone goes a step further and uses every single note. So instead of just using 1 note, or maybe 2 notes that kind of create the dissonance and tension, they use every single note. And because of that, you get these really strange chords and these strange things. And it sometimes 12 tone can sound alien, because you can't, you will commonly just feel the key signature, even if you don't know music theory at all. You'll know the key signature because you can feel it. 12 tone will feel very weird, because you'll think you hear a key signature, and then it'll use a bunch of notes that don't fit in that key signature, but they still sound good in the song, and so that can't be the right key, and so it can get a little confusing. But Giant Steps doesn't. Like, Giant Steps just always feels good. And I can't listen to this song without smiling. And to me, that's jazz. Like, there's a lot of songs I really enjoy. I'm a huge musical theater buff. I have entire shows memorized. There's certain pop songs I'm like, oh, that's really nice. And a lot of other things where I really love these songs, but none of them have the experience that, or give me the experience that jazz does. So, jazz is amazing. If you can, I'm gonna put a link to a recording on YouTube of Giant Steps. Listen to it. Even if you're not a jazz fan, even if you hate jazz, for me, listen to Giant Steps. It is the work of an absolute musical genius, and it really does deserve a listen to. Even if you don't like that stuff, it's an experience. And then if you do, listen to more. Coltrane is amazing. Miles Davis, very different, still amazing. Dizzy Gillespie, Stan Getz, Um, Obviously, you have like the big names: Ella Fitzgerald, Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington is another brilliant one. Trying to Dave Brubeck, that's his name. Dave Brubeck has a brilliant uh, group, and a song called Take Five, which is written in 5/4. That's why it's called Take Five, and it's brilliant. Always, Glenn Miller, Buddy Goodman, all those amazing people. Get into jazz. All modern music can trace its roots back to jazz and blues. Country, rock, heavy metal, all of them have traces of jazz in them, because jazz was the first American music, and it's brilliant. Anyway, that's all for me today, and I'll see you guys next time. All right, bye bye.